que chaya.
Hey everyone, this video is going to take you through some fairly detailed steps to build your own sewer bases. I made two versions, a really fast one that you can build in minutes and a more complex base for a diorama or centerpiece mini. I stumbled across a new product I really wanted to try instead of using putty and a roller to make cobblestone, which is this cobblestone pattern plastic card sheet. I had no idea how it was going to look heading into this, so let's find out together, I guess. I also used a few lengths of plastic card sticks, a small pipe shape and a quarter circle shape, as well as some of my hobby staples that I always use for terrain. Alright, so sit back and relax and let's get started. So first up I get my plastic card and I start to cut out a shape that is the part of the base that's going to be cobblestone. I cut it out real quick just using regular scissors. It's quite thin, the plastic card, so easy to work with. And then I just dry fit it to the base to make sure it all fits okay, and just trim the edges to make it line up nicely. I then get one of the plastic card sticks, which is the quarter circle, and I measure it to shape and plonk it down on the base. Again, dry fitting just to make sure everything looks good. Just get plastic cement, so it is plastic card, so you can use plastic cement. Again, great for when you have to do a lot of these. You can just use the same glue you're using to build your minis. I stick down the the cobblestone bit first, and then the quarter circle plastic card stick. And that is pretty much all you need to do to construct this first simple base. Onto the bigger base, I use 5cm thick XPS foam, and I draw out the shape of the base as well as the line to decide where the cobblestone bit is going to be and where the sewer bit is going to be. I used a hot wire cutter for that, and then used hot glue to stick it down to the base, and then as you can see here, just trimming it off. Did the exact same thing with the cobblestone plastic card, stuck it down, trimmed it off, and tidied it up. Again with the plastic card stick, stuck it down to shape, used plastic cement and put that down on the base. I then thought it'd be really kind of cool to have a sewer bit in there, so I drew a circle where I roughly wanted it. I used a hot wire cutter, the pokey stick bit, to carve that out. Then got some hobby cardboard and drew myself some bricks, and so this was 1/2 centimeter thick and they were 1 centimeter wide each. Just used hobby scissors to do this, so again really easy to work with. Don't need any fancy equipment to build these bases. Chopping them up, and there are all of our bricks. Okay, so next I got the pipe-shaped plastic card and just measured out some grates for the sewer and just trimmed those with a hobby cutter. And then just stuck them in by hand into where I'd cut the sewer shape, and just put a tiny little bit of PVA glue, which is not on the screen here, but just to hold it in place. Nothing too heavy needed to make these stick because they're actually stuck into the foam itself. Next I got some PVA glue and started applying it where I wanted my bricks and stuck them down. It was kind of fun. It's good to do a bit of a haphazard pattern. What I like about cardboard bricks like this is they do look quite rough and jumbled and old, which is the look we're going for with this, so that is the finished product. I have these green stuffed little mushrooms. I love them. I use them all the time, and I just decided I'd pluck one off and shove it in the sewer grate somewhere. It's kind of hard to see, but at least I'll know it's there, which is all that really matters. Next I just added a bit of detail, so to give some visual interest, a few dots of PVA and some sand there just to give it a little bit more texture. And then I also applied a bit of sand to the front, and that PVA was still wet, so it was a little bit of a grout, as well as adding a bit of texture. Then went on to priming, so I used some Xandri dust and Wraithbone. The Wraithbone was done at a bit of an angle just to indicate maybe where some light might be coming from, just as a bit of a guide for me as I was painting it. Next I went to getting some colours ready. This was for the smaller bases cobblestone, so I got a bunch of natural colours, popped them down and applied a bit of a random pattern across the cobblestone. So there's a sort of fleshy coloured pink there, a beige, brown, a few different colours. Doesn't really matter what they are as long as they're relatively natural and you apply them randomly. Next I just painted that little separator between the sewer water and the street with a blue-grey. And then I went ahead and painted where the water will go. So this is a dark green, followed by a mid-tone green, and then a lighter green, just to give some sense of depth, or maybe some glowing effect out there in the water somewhere. So who knows, I think as long as it creates a bit of variety in the tones is all that really matters. Okay, so onto some washes. I have some Nuln Oil and Agrax Earthshade here. I start with the Nuln Oil in the darker half of the base, where that light was further from where that light was coming when I sprayed it. And then I use Agrax on the top end, which is slightly lighter, just to also give some visual interest and difference in tones. Then get some Rakarth flesh once that's completely dried and give it a quick dry brush. I did overdo it a bit, and you can see part of the base had too much dry brushing, and I just painted back in some of the shadows between the cobblestones. So for the larger base I used a dark grey as the base, and I put a variety of colours on it. And then here for the brick wall I used a light colour, I think it was pale sand, and just drew out a portion closer where the light source is that is lighter, and then I use a reddish cavalry brown, I think the colour's called, to do the other side. So just painted them in sort of opposite directions. Again, everything's just trying to give some sense of visual direction to the piece. And then we just got a mid-tone between those two colours and blended that in. Just adding some extra depth in the corner there. Then got a dry brush, light grey, and applied that, and just kept adding white to that mix just to sort of increase the contrast and put a lot of that white in the light half of the base. I got some Liquitex green ink. I watered it down a lot and created a bit of a glaze. I took most of the liquid off the brush and then applied that over the entire front of the base where the brickwork is, just to give maybe a bit of a green mossy effect. We're going to be adding moss later, but this will add to that. Alright, so onto the bars. We applied this with a Castellax Bronze was the colour, and painted that in all Castellax Bronze and did some highlights as well later on. and I finally just did a few edge highlights on the bricks with pale sand, just to sort of give them a bit of contrast and add to the texture. So moving on to some enamel washes, you could use regular washes as well, or pigment powders. I just happen to have these nearby and use them. So this is a dust colored enamel wash, and then applied that, added mineral spirits to let it run through all the crevices, and then used a paper towel to blot most of it off, leaving some of that dusty look in between the cobblestones. I then got a little bit of a green enamel wash, which would blend with the dust and add another color to the mix. And then a black enamel wash just to add, again, more variation and patterning across the base. Just have fun here. You can do whatever you want. Just there's no rules. Just enjoy it and do what you think looks good. Also added this earthy sort of color here, like a desert color, just to give, again, another bit of visual interest. And this is an oil spill effect paint, and I just wanted to try it out. It gives a slightly glossy finish, and I thought that could be cool just to add a bit of sheen with the matte dust, just to, again, bring some variety into the base. Now to do the black rims, and we're gonna now add a little bit of moss to the piece, just to give it some texture and to get it looking really damp and dank, which is what we need from a sewer. So I just get some quite runny super glue and apply that in a pattern where I want it, and then apply that first green, really basic kind of flock that you can get from any hobby shop. So next I go over that exact same moss that I just applied and just put a few patches in smaller areas and get that brighter green colored flock and apply that there, and that's just give some two tones to that moss effect. And lastly, I've just added some of that green fluffy sort of moss onto the base there. Now I'm just getting some Agrax Earthshade and applying that to the moss effects, just to give some variation in tones. Now to add some water effects to the smaller base, I got some gloss Mod Podge and just applied that to the water area of the base. Then took a little straw and blew some ripples and patterns into the Mod Podge just to give a running water effect. Okay, on to resin. So I've just got some resin here and applied a bit of AK dark green grime color. I just add a little bit of color at a time until I get a consistency and color that I like. So once that's done, I've used a Green Stuff World silicone mold that's just the right size for this base. And I've used some cotton wool balls that I've just torn off, and I apply this inside the grates just to give this sort of flowing water effect. The white should hopefully contrast a little bit with the green and sort of look like the water's streaming out of that hole. We'll see. And then lastly, I just pour in my resin. As always, I made way too much, so I managed to get a few other minis done at the same time. Now we're just making sure that resin's right inside the sewer grate. We want it to look like the water's coming out of there. And then I use a dropper just to add some light streaking grime, which I like to sort of add a bit of a filthy look of what's coming out of that sewer. And I've used a darker streaking grime color there to add some brown. And that is the base done. So now we play the waiting game and give it 24 hours to dry. And there's the finished product. Hope you found that helpful. I'll be doing new basing and terrain videos every few weeks, so please subscribe to the channel and you'll get notified when the next one comes out.